In any life, we have highs and lows, light and dark, wins and losses. What happens when we encounter that moment in time when what happens next could change everything? Join us as we step into another person's inspirational moment and see how we can connect their experience to ours. This is Greg Stevens, and you're listening to A Shot of Inspiration. Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Stevens, and welcome to another episode of A Shot of Inspiration. Today, I have got one of my favorite people on the planet, and he has been a mentor of mine since I was 15, folks. He really took me under his wing. He became an amazing father figure and example for me early on in life. And he's someone, even though many years I went through, haven't talked to him, we've rekindled over the last probably 5-6 years. But even during that time, he was always with me. He showed me so many different things about life. And he's been, for me, a lifelong mentor in my heart. Today we have
Well, bless you.
Val Rhodes. I call him Coach Val Rhodes. And I just want to share something with you. This is off of his website. He has a youth foundation for literacy and reading, and he's going to talk a little about that here in just a little while. But I want to give you a little background on Coach. I usually don't read people's bios, but I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. Coach Rhodes has been a high school principal, a school administrator, science instructional design specialist, instructional coach, and a teacher for 47 years. And 34 of those years, he's been a high school chemistry teacher. He's trained teachers from different forms of mediated learning and various reading programs to increase the fluency and comprehension for children. In 2020, he was inducted into the Grady Spruce Hall of Fame, where he was a 2-time Teacher of the Year and Assistant Principal. And in 2021, he was inducted into the Brownwood Hall of Champions. And Coach Val Rhodes, thanks for being here. Thank
you, my
so
brother. I appreciate you, my son.
I want to share with what you meant to me personally over the years. Folks, at one point, you might not know this, I played basketball. I was pretty proficient at it. And I had a coach before Coach Rhodes that taught me all the foundational basics. And I had a family of discipline. But when I moved to Dallas, it was interesting, moved into kind of a more rougher side of Dallas than most people think of. And Coach Rhodes was trying to get the basketball program on a track. And they didn't even have an off-season basketball program until he got there. And it was a little town called Seagoville, just outside on the southeast side of Dallas. But I went, and Coach took a interest in me. And he just really, at that time in my life, I really needed someone to guide me, a father figure. I had some talent. I had a big ego. There's a lot of things about me. He took me under his wing. He became not just a coach, a mentor, advisor, a friend, in many ways, a father. And he also helped me in my personal problems throughout the year. He made me a better basketball player. One of the things I'll say is I learned all the foundational pieces of basketball, but Coach Rhodes taught me I had the love for it, but he taught me the art of basketball. He taught me showtime, run and gun, and the beautiful things that can come out of that, and allowed me to have, I guess, free expression of my game.
Yes.
And he pulled it out of me. And I was really based in the foundation of basketball, but he made it an art form for me. So, Coach, I can't tell you just in basketball how much that meant to me, but I learned that about life too. There's disciplines, there's foundations you need, but there's also the art of life that you need to create. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you for that, Greg. As you was talking, I was reminiscing, and I can see if we were under the rules of today, things would have been a lot better for you. I remember you coming in, and back then when you transferred in, you had to sit out a year. So you had to play JV. Now you don't have to sit out, and you could have immediately played. I wasn't fortunate enough to have you on the varsity with me for a year, and then we finally got you up. And then, of course, being at Seagoville, I started at Skyline in 76. So I hadn't even been coaching that long to understand some of the other nuances coming from Skyline and the kids that I have from the South Side. You basically had a point, 2 wings, and post, and your offense did not have to initiate with a guard to guard pass or guard to forward pass. You could penetrate and then dish. As I got older, and as I reflect back, when I had Headache and those guys at Spruce, where we set more screens and we did more picks and pick and rolls, I think if I had that knowledge a little bit earlier, we might have been looking at you in the NBA.
Thank you. And
yeah,
it wasn't
always a
meant to
great
be.
shooter. Beautiful shot. Beautiful shot. Do you still have it?
I don't know. I haven't picked up a ball in years. But that's one thing. You allowed me to pull the trigger. You allowed me to, one of the things I felt like I was really proficient in passing as well.
Yes.
And you allowed me to throw passes back then. My
Yeah.
old coach wouldn't have let me.
Right.
But also, folks, I just want to share with you when I had sights on the NBA at that time, and I walked out my senior year, the week before season started, right before practice happened. I tore every ligament in my left ankle, and the next week I had surgery on my right ankle. And so I ended up in a wheelchair my senior year. And back then, also Coach Rhodes said I wasn't eligible. I wasn't eligible 3 of 4 years to play varsity because I'd moved, I'd gone to basketball camp, I'd moved again. So I only had 1 year of eligibility. But I'll never forget, I tore my ligaments and Coach wasn't out at practice yet. And he came to practice. He goes, "Where's Stevens?" And they said he hurt himself. And I'll never forget, Coach Rhodes came back to see me and he looked at my ankle and it was the size of a cantaloupe. And he knew season started. He knew I was looking for a scholarship and that was probably the only way I was going to get to school. And when he saw that, tears came to his eyes. And I hated that he had that because I knew it was serious and I already knew it was serious. But when he did that, but I also knew that he cared so much about me. And that's one of the things I want to talk to you about, Coach, because that kind of leads us in. You took me in. Your belief in kids has never wavered. You've been around schools for 45 years. Kids, I know they love you. I've heard some of the stories we've talked about, people pulling over the side of the road, yelling at you, Coach. That's who you are to people. So tell me, how do you sustain that kind of a love for the problems you've seen increase over the years for the kids you engage with?
I think it goes back to my beginning. I wasn't raised by my mom or my dad. I was raised by my great aunt and great uncle and my grandmama. They took me in. They couldn't have kids themselves. And that love that they had for me and instilled that in me made a difference. You have to remember, I come through a different time period. I come through the 50s and the 60s. I come through a time period where people were starting to naturally integrate. It wasn't a forced thing. My great aunt was a body masseuse. And so we have people of different cultures coming into our house all the time. So by the time I got to the 7th grade, which was the first time in 66, I believe, was integrated, I realized the foundation that they had given me and the people that I had met, that people are people. And if you leave and give them time enough to be around each other, they'll be okay. I think probably one of the foundational things for me was when I hit the 7th grade in 66, coming from an all segregated school, which was not negative back then. People get the wrong stories. There's many cities where people had their own schools, they had their own restaurants, they had their own businesses. It's just this perception that's out there that everything was bad, but no, it wasn't. But when I hit the 7th grade and 6 weeks came and I got my report card, then I realized what Martin Luther King said, somebody told a lie one day. Yes, my grades were just as good as anybody else. But then meeting with friends and being under the tutelage of Coach Brownwood, when he died, was all-time winningest football coach in America. And of course, Coach Kenneth West and Coach Royce Blackburn, they just instilled in me this idea of how older people could really help young people. And it stuck with me. So when I graduated, went off to the University of North Texas, back then, NTSU, got my degree and started coaching in 76. that's just the way I felt. I felt that it was an obligation for me to give back to the kids that I coached. And also, I never had maybe since seventh grade, one teacher that happened to look like me. Everybody else didn't look like me.
Yeah.
Everybody else looked like you.
Yeah, exactly.
And I felt this obligation that once I got into a situation where I could help kids, I wanted to be as big of a positive role model as I could, because I could see the negative role models and then I could see the positive role models. And I know that the brain associates real well in everything that I did or tried to do. I tried to be a good positive role model for all kids.
And I can say you were. One of the things I loved, you were one of the most loved people, not just teachers, but people at our school. And you knew everyone. You engaged with everyone. And you expected your players to be a example, to do certain things.
Yes.
And you actually were harder on them than anyone else. That's how my father was. And I love that because you were preparing us for a lot of things, not just basketball. You're preparing us for life.
Yes.
And I appreciate that. But also you knew where to play with others. And that's why you were so loved. You were really loved.
Appreciate it, Greg.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Well, what I'd like to do is talk about what you're doing now, because that's how you started your career. And I could sit here with you all day talking about different stories. Let's talk about the work you're doing now, because everything in your life has led you to this. So walk us through what you think maybe some key points that led you to this. But let's talk about your foundation and your LLC and all the different things you're trying to do. If you're listening to this podcast, listen closely. And if you feel led, I would love for you to reach out and help Coach out with a donation to his foundation, because I believe the work he is doing is so important. And we're going to talk about some of the statistics, but the lives that can be changed out of it. So tell us a little about your foundation, how you got to this point.
The way that I got to the foundation really comes in sideways, because I'm really known as a basketball coach. For years, I was the lead coach for the Dallas Mavericks hoop camp for kids in the summer. And I did that for 20 straight years and didn't take any time off. And we would probably do about 18 camps during the summer. We divide them into 2 per week. So I would usually do about 8 to 10 camps during the summer. And
real quick, if anyone doesn't know, working a camp is not a 9 to 5. It is probably about a 6:30 in the morning till 10 or 11 at night thing, isn't it, Coach?
Yeah. The Maverick camp we would let them go at 4:30, but of course, Dave Bless and some of those guys at SMU, when I was working those camps, those went into the nighttime and so forth. Yeah, it's rough.
And everything.
And then I'd have the summer, and then I also was running Have Coach Will Travel, where I would travel to different parts of the city or out of town, say to Bridgeport with my good friend, Brother Bill, and work out his kids and the Simpson kids, and work out other kids all over, Joshua, Weatherford, just travel and go, just always on the go, because I was trying to feed my family and take care of my family, because I found earlier I needed to bring my wife home, even though she was degreed, to be with the kids. And I've been blessed because of her being home with the kids. But I like the basketball. I'm probably as good as anybody else out there. I get calls now for people to have me come in, just look at the shot, look at the game, evaluate it. But I got away from that. As I retired 17 years ago, I went right back. I was voluntold to become a principal, voluntold to become an assistant principal when I was coaching. And I did that for 8 years, and I just wanted to get back into the classroom, and they wouldn't let me. So I just retired from the state and then just came right back and started teaching 2 different schools, Lancaster and Dallas Christian. And then opportunity came for me to be an instructional specialist, instructional coach for Texans Can Corporation, which has 14 different schools. So with them, I was flying out to the different schools and doing the instructional specialist, and I realized how important reading was. And then my last year really hit me, because they had me to be over credit recovery. And as you're over credit recovery, you're still going to always do all of your objectives. You still are going to do everything you're supposed to, but you have the ability to cut different activities and things out. And then I realized if I had the power to cut little activities and little things out, then someone else has the power to cut things out of, let me get in trouble, books and other things.
Right.
So when you cut things out and don't give all of the information, then people do not mentally have all the information that they need, and therefore sometimes division comes. Mm-hmm. So I said if I had the opportunity to do something about that, I would. Last year, I decided, since my LLC was geared that way, I wanted to find as many like-minded people such as myself and just start my foundation. And I saw different foundations come into DISD and to the CAN, but they really didn't have the expertise that I felt was needed to hit certain populations, especially those who are low in their credits, those who are struggling with knowing who they are. I just saw a lot of people just skimming over the top and not getting down to the root, and really nobody can get down to the root because you have to be from that to really understand. So the foundation, first of all, is different from any others in that I'm always going to check reading first. So every child has a lexile level based upon second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, and so forth. And you test them using a tester, and then you can take them and put them into different interventions, which is a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 3 is really one-on-one with the student. Tier 2, you can do about 2 or 3 students at a time, and then tier 1. So since we were doing this for the CAN and we're doing it for different subjects, I decided that why not do it with conflict resolution? Why not do it with life skills? Why not do it with behavior etiquette, and create lessons and create materials that we could have the kids read, and then at the same time do what's called mediated learning. In mediated learning, the person who is the mediator knows where he wants to go, and he sits between the child and the information, and he mediates them to that point by asking questions and so forth. So I learned that from Dr. Ben Hur, professor out of the Feinstein Institute in Jerusalem. He was one of my mentors for about 5 years. Then I went overseas, met in Copenhagen with Dr. Feinstein and that group, and learned some more stuff. And then came on back, and as I said, I left the CAN, so we call it Texans CAN. A buddy of mine asked me to come over as an assistant principal for a while and help him out, and then he left. And then I got a call not too long ago that principal at the particular school where I am now left and asked me if I could fill in for a while until he gets there. I thought I would fill in until spring break, but they still haven't found anybody. So I'm itching to get back to what I really love, and that is working with youth, help them with the reading, help them with their basic life skills, and helping them obviously with behavior etiquette, because you have so many teachers now who are quitting the profession because of the behavior of the kids. And that behavior obviously is induced by the things that they're seeing, the things that they're hearing, and it's causing an effect to where the kids are not responding, they're not wanting to talk, they're not wanting to engage. And it's very frustrating to the teachers. And I guess I get along very well with my teachers because no administrator has 34 years in the classroom. Right. I had 23 years in the classroom before I went into administration. So I have to be careful, because when I'm in teacher meetings, I talk like a teacher. I fool around and stuff. Man, the administrator don't know what they're talking about, man. You go and teach your class. Do what you need to do, okay? And if you have a problem, send them to me. You know what I'm saying? I know sometimes you're supposed to be able to take care of your own business. You're supposed to be able to call your parents. But send them to me. And because I never wrote a referral as a teacher. I never felt like any man could handle anything that I couldn't do. So what's the need of a referral? I'm going to take you outside, and we're going to shut the door so nobody else here. We're going to talk. And of course, you have a few that are a little more stubborn. You have to have another kind of conversation.
Also, that's a gift, because you know how to talk to teenage boys and girls. That's tough.
Yes.
From my experience, all of that is attributed to what you're doing, your vision, all the things you're doing. Let's talk about some of the stats that you were giving me earlier before we started recording. You're giving me some stats. I was just amazed about the stats around literacy, the problems with it. Can you give a couple of stats and then maybe a couple of stories of people you've seen have breakthroughs around it and those who didn't take it on? Some failure stories of people who just said, I'm not going to do that, or didn't have access to it.
Right now, I think it maybe a couple of years ago, Texas was 3 out of 50 states with 8th grade literacy. We're in a situation now where 2 out of every 3 kids who, once they leave the 3rd grade, if they're not at 3rd grade proficiency, will either be incarcerated or will be on welfare. For years, we've known that 85% of all kids that are in the juvenile justice system are at a 4th grade reading level or below. So many of our kids out there, so many of our kids are doing great. So many of our kids are fantastic. And I don't want to do that because I want to make sure I'm not generalizing. But we have a huge amount of kids that are not there. And even adults, you have so many adults that are there that are not at the reading level that they need to be. And instead of folks just talking about it, I'm trying to do something about it. And I was mentored by Richard Marquez and Marquez Reading. If you want to know something about that, you can go to his website. And he mentored me in how to conduct reading, which is different forms and different ways that you can do certain things. He just had a particular method that I enjoyed, and I use other methods too. But the idea is to get the kids to reading where there's some type of automaticity, frequency, so they're not stumbling over words. And then you move into comprehension, which first starts with paraphrasing what's there and comprehension. And then at some point, you try to move into what's called transcendence. And transcendence is where you can take the information that you're reading and hook it, episodic, hook it somewhere in your life. And once you take that information and can hook it on something in your life, then you pretty much have it. So that's where we are. And then, of course, the life skills, knowing what to do, understanding the media, understanding what's going on with your Instagram and your TikTok, understanding the digital information that's coming in and how it affects the brain, and understanding that the dopamine that's released and the other hormones that are released, that's why you can't put the phone down. It's not because you're a bad person. If that's the case, then I probably have to send all of my teachers out of teachers meeting because they're always checking their phone. But that's what it's doing. Right. And it's affecting the kids, and it's a real problem.
Oh, yeah. I remembered back when a couple of my friends got on their phone first, they seemed to be on it all the time.
Right.
And noticed that now that's just the way it is almost.
Oh, yes.
And that's what's pulled us in. We were talking earlier also, many times what you're trying to do, people try to shorten the time frame and
Right.
how much time you have. Talk a little about that, because one of the things we were talking about is we think if we can lower the time, we're more efficient. With human beings, it's the opposite. So share with us what some of the battles you run into around timing and getting the time you need with people.
Obviously, because of the digital information that comes through the phone, especially with a young person, they can't tell the difference between an animate and an inanimate object. I remember at Seagoville, when I went back after you left, I went back as assistant principal. They called me on the radio. The young lady had teacher pushed up against the wall because the teacher back then, it wasn't phone, it was these little cassette players. Yeah. And little cassette radios, right? And so in the young folks' mind, when they can't talk to mom, they can't talk to dad, they don't have other friends, it's the radio or the cassette piece or the phone that's their friend. That's where they're getting all the information. That's where they're getting all their enjoyment. That's where all that's going, and that likeness and pushing them buttons and releasing the hormones. Ooh, that feels good. Okay, good. I take that. Ooh, that feels, and they like that feeling. So anyway, I walked in and I saw the young lady. I won't call her name. I said, baby, what's going on? She said, Coach, she grabbed my cassette player. I said, if you give it to me, I'll promise you, I'll give it back. She released the teacher. Just walked over, gave it to me. I said, come on, baby, we need to go to the office and sit down and talk. But little things like that, understanding the teenage mind and what's going on today. I had a teacher the other day was getting on a kid because the kid had his head down. And she sent for me. And I said, come walk with me. So we walk over to the student and I tapped the student. And you have to forgive me. I call all my kids Kim folks. I'm a principal, but the kids call me Papa. It's a psychological thing. It's just something about being a grandparent or a Papa that you can get on kids and they accept it because it's Papa. So I just touch him and he looks up and he said, hey, Papa. I said, what time did you get off of work? He said, I got off about 2:30 this morning. I said, have you got off of work 2:30 every day this week? He says, yes. I said, can you give me 5 minutes? Can you take 5 minutes and then get up and do your work? He said, yeah, I can do that. So I let him go and I walked the teacher out. I said, you never know what the students have to go through, especially where I am right now. I'm in a situation where I'm at a school that is credit recovery. You're trying to catch up on your work. You're not just on computers. You actually have real classes with English, real classes with history, real classes. And you're getting all these different kids that come from all over the city, and they're already behind and they already have issues. And you just have to be able to relate to them and relate to them. As I always said, streetwise kids are extremely smart.
They have to be.
For where they are, they're extremely smart. And they may not be intelligent as far as your academics and books are concerned, but they are intelligent. The problem is that when you have streetwise kids, as I always said, the streets ain't for everybody. That's why you got sidewalks. And some people are sidewalk people. They don't know how to step down to pull kids back up on the sidewalk. So I tell my teachers all the time, look, all of you are great. You could go anywhere and teach. That's not the problem. If the paperwork gets on you, if the meetings is too much, if all that's too much, then stay. Stay. But if the problem is the kids, then you need to go. That doesn't mean you're not a great teacher. You're just not the right fit for the type of kids that we have. And we have good teachers who are the right fit. Kids are going to say certain things, do everything. And part of my job is to correct you. Okay, part of my job is discipline. Discipline means I'm trying to correct. Punishment means I ain't trying. I'm not trying to correct you. I'm punishing you. No, it's discipline. I got to pull you over. And I guess from the years of being in the Spruce area, in the Pleasant Grove area, the years of being cussed and talked about and whatever, I just have that ability to understand that you're just mad, you're just upset, you're not mad at me. And generally what happens is the next day, the kid that you really got into it with, and he comes to school and you still speak to him and you don't hold a grudge, all of a sudden now they just want to be with you because they realize, okay, I did this to you and you still are being nice to me, you still are treating me, I think I'm gonna hang with you for a while. So
I love that. I love that. And to me, that's a real difference, but also that's part of what I love is your character as a man and a human being, because when I've been with you, to me, ego is void. It's not there. It's a love for kids. It's not about what you look like. It's not about anything else.
right. Oh
It's
yeah,
about
right.
helping.
Right.
But I so often I'm like, look at what I did. Look what I did. And the character today is very different than it was, but you've carried that throughout and you've given that love to kids. Tell us about maybe a success story of someone who you've watched them learn to read, maybe some of the doors that have opened up for some of them.
It's obviously I'm looking at one.
Thanks.
But many kids over the years, I had a friend of mine named Greg Burris, and he owns a detective agency. And we were just talking, and I said his daughter was in the second grade. I said, oh, really? I said, so how's things going? She said, I've talked to the teachers that had problems with her reading. Matter of fact, come think of it, it's on the testimonial on my website. And I said, let me test her. I'm going to send you some work, and then we'll do a Zoom call. And then I'll test her, see where she is. And I'm sure he doesn't mind me sharing this because he's written it on the testimony. She was only able to get 1 or 2 words within a minute, second grade. And I saw that right away. So I started going through the process with her. And before we ended at that particular time, she was up to about 32 words. So I showed him what to do. I showed him the process of what he needed to be able to do with her and work with her. And he starts texting me back a day or so later. Hey, she's up to 40. Hey, she's up to 50. Hey, she's up to 62. Hey, she's up to this. The reason why I'm doing this, Greg, I'm trying to look for a little something to give you an idea.
Yeah.
When you're in the second grade, you should be reading at what's called a 300L to 600L on a Lexile scale. And in the fall, you should be doing anywhere from 30 to 60 words. All right. And in the winter, you should be doing anywhere from 50 to 80. And in the spring, you should be doing anywhere from 70 to 80. So in other words, when you're reading, that's the number of correct words that you have. So we got her up to 80. And so I did a retester with her, which is a completely different passage. And right away, first time, you know it's going to be a little bit lower. But I think she was at 47, first time she did it. So some of those words are kept. So the hearing word is in the brain. You just got to connect the hearing word with the seeing word. And once you see the word enough, then it becomes automatic. And it works. It works for Mr. Marquez. It works for other folk. It's just people have different methods of doing it. So I just decided the school system didn't teach me how to swim. Mr. Williams did in the neighborhood. The school system did not teach me how to ride a bike. My mom did. The school system did not teach me my alphabet. My auntie that raised me did, and did not teach me my timetables. Did not teach me to read. They did. So I'm seeing that's lacking. So what can I do as a person to try to help parents and to try to help people outside of the school system to do that? And now as I'm looking and I'm seeing many of the kids don't have the life skills that they need to be able to make it. And their behavior, etiquette is not there. They don't know the magic words. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. I stopped the kid the other day. He was going somewhere he wasn't supposed to. And I spoke to him. He stopped. He turned. He looked me in the eye. I smiled. He smiled. I said, why are you smiling? He said, because you taught me that even when I'm doing something wrong, if I stop, turn, and look you straight in the eyes, then I'm probably going to be okay. And I said, well, you're right, because the first time I met you, you just kept on walking, and you can't do that around adults. And I gave him an example when I went from 6th grade to 7th grade. Obviously, there was a cultural difference. And as I'm speaking to my teacher, speaking to me or talking to me about something, I'm there in front of him and my head is down like this, and he's talking to me, and my head is down and he's talking to me, and his head is down. And so he thinks I'm being disrespectful. So my dad has to come up to the school and he asked him, well, what happened? He says, he's being disrespectful. He said, tell me what he did. He said, the whole time I'm talking to him, his head is down like this. And my dad started laughing. He said, I'm sorry, sir. It's a cultural thing. I said, in our culture, and you're a man, the boys can't look you in the eye. Because if you're looking in the eye and I'm talking to you, he's going to say, you eyeballing me, boy?
All right. Affecting me.
you smelling yourself, boy.
Yeah. Then there's disrespect there.
Yeah. So
even
the teacher,
worse. It's jacked up a little.
Yeah. And then when he told that, of course, my dad, George Creighton, everybody knew him. And the teacher smiled. He said, Miss Creighton, I never thought about that. He said, yeah. He said, try it next time and you'll see. Because that was a beautiful time. That's the 60s when I got inducted into the Brownwood Hall of Fame. It's just amazing because in 1972, I was the vice president of the student body. And we were only like about 2% melanated people who we call so-called African-American today. It's just the love for people, all people, trying to teach them. Yeah. But kids need some type of way to navigate through society today, and they're just not going to make it.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because in corporate America, I work with people all the time and leaders. And one of the biggest thing we talk about leaders is how do you get the behavior you want to get the change you want?
Right.
And we did teach, break it down. You got to hit them on a, deeper purpose level.
Yes.
But you
Yes.
also have to look at the behavior. And what I love is that what you're doing is as you look at literacy, you're breaking it down because the numbers you said, if most people incarcerated, is it fourth grade?
Right. When dealing with the juvenile justice system.
Right.
Yeah.
If we can, let's move people to eighth grade, to ninth grade. As
Right.
we do that, that behavior changes so much for so many different lives, but we can go and focus on that. And it gives us real tangible results. What you're doing, I love it so much because you are going to a place that needs to be gone to that will affect not just that person, but society and as a whole, as we help people be more literate, be able to engage differently, to be able to look each other in the eye, or if they feel disrespected, how to speak up about it. You're giving all of these great skills, and I love that you're doing it at the age you're doing it at.
At the beginning, I thought, okay, being an instructional specialist, understanding that if you got kids that come into the classroom and some of them can't read, then that's some of the discipline problem that you're having, because sometimes they're faking, sometimes they're not doing certain things because they can't. And then I realized that even with some of the kids that can read, that are doing a decent job, there are other behaviors that are popping up that shouldn't be popping up. Just the general respect that you should have for an older person who is trying to do their job and trying to help you, and you're just not being able to sit and be able to listen. It's just wild. I try to do things by referrals, whether it's single or whether it's a group, or where somebody asks me to come over and work with a group. And as I say, as I'm just starting this out, as my foundation. And I've been doing it for 47 years. So I thought, what way to give back as I move along in years? And the age shouldn't fool you, because I was in a meeting with instructional specialists about 2 weeks ago, and the lady says, he talked just like those kids. And I'm saying, yeah, because they're teaching me and I'm teaching them. I believe it was KRS-One was talking about youth and older people. He said older people, when they run around with younger people, when they go back to older people, they move faster among the older people.
Oh,
And when younger people hang around older people and learn stuff and learn things, and then go back amongst younger people, they move faster than the younger people because they're able to get a reciprocity from each other. Yeah.
yeah. And what I like is in the classroom, we can pass along knowledge.
Yes.
But what you're talking about is wisdom, and you
Yes.
can't pass
Yes.
on wisdom. You have to experience it. But
Yeah.
that's created from
Yeah.
people getting together and learning from that space.
Yes, and the kids will say, Coach, how can I make it in the class? I say, have you ever rope a dope? They said, well,
What's that?
what's rope a dope? I said, you never heard of Ali Foreman? I said, no, what happened? I said, Ali was the dance master, but in that particular fight, he decided not to dance and go against the rope, and let George Foreman hit him with everything he could. And then in the 8th round, he whispered in his ear and said, it's my turn, and knocked him out. I said, you have to learn how to rope a dope. You need to learn how to go into class and to go against the ropes and be quiet and listen and look at the teacher and let the teacher give you the information and let the teacher teach you. And then you ask questions and you do this and you do that. And then when you graduate, you can say, okay, it's my turn.
And just like Ali, you'll see that opportunity open up.
Yes, yes, it will.
But it doesn't happen without some blows, though, does it?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. You gotta get some blows. Yeah, you
Yeah,
you
that's
gotta be
life.
quiet, and you want to smart off because the teacher says something, or you want to get back, or you want to do that. No.
Yeah. So, folks, we're going a little long here, and I'm glad we did. But we're going to go ahead and
When you and I together is always gonna go long.
Yeah, exactly. That's another thing, folks. Coach Rhodes is going to be with me with another guest in a couple of weeks. So you'll get to see him again. I'll talk about that when we have her podcast, but I want to have you and Millie on at the same time.
It's T.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that. But folks, like Coach Rhodes said, he's been doing this for years. He's getting his foundation going. Let's give it a kickstart. Let's help him out. If you know of other people, send this podcast to them. Have them take a listen. And I know with our short attention span, sometimes we're going to give you a little piece here, a piece there. But if you feel led, look at all the information on our website on Coach Rhodes. See if you need me or to connect you somehow, but we'll have all of Coach Rhodes' information posted for you. There'll be a place for you to go, maybe reach out if you have other volunteers or things like that. Just however you feel like you could help and serve Coach Rhodes as he goes and helps and serves our community in bringing up the literacy score with people in disadvantaged areas. Coach, thank you so much. I love you. You're like a dad. I love the Pops thing, but you're always a big coach to me.
All right.
But I love you, Coach.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate you so much. All right.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of A Shot of Inspiration. If you'll hit like or subscribe, I really appreciate it. And with that, we'll see you next time on A Shot of Inspiration. I'm Greg Stevens. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of A Shot of Inspiration. If you like this or any of our other episodes, make sure you rate it and share it with a friend. This is Greg Stevens, and we look forward to being with you next time. Until then, be bold, be courageous, and respectfully speak your truth.